What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the 7th edition of the Opening Tee podcast with your host, Jason Roslin. I've been your host for the first 7 episodes of this one by myself here, and that probably will change once the season starts. I'll be able to drag in some of my co-hosts that are bogged down with some football stuff that obviously won't be here as we get into the new year after the turn of the first. So until then, you're going to have me. Hopefully you're okay with that as we move into the last 2 weeks of the fall swing. Exciting times. Only exciting times, I say that because these are the weeks where you really got to dig in, do the research, find some type of edge that's there, because these are the weeks that you're going to be able to do it. The competition just isn't out there that much. People don't want to dig in and find out about these players that they may not know much about. It's been a good 3-week stretch for myself. Not a great week, as this is a perfect lead-in to the Forceman Facts. It could have been a great week last week for the European Tour Tournament. We'll start with that one first, as it was really incredible. A $1.5 million 6-for-1 playoff. 6 guys ended up getting to the playoff of the Turkish Airlines Open. And if you weren't able to watch, Matthias Schwab was 20 under, coming down 18th hole, needed to birdie it, a par 5. He had birdied it every single round, the first 3 rounds. Of course, he didn't, and that led 5 other guys to tie him at 20 under par. Crazy. 6 guys ended up going off, 2 in threesomes after the first hole, the first playoff hole. It whittled down to just 3. Those 3 went for a couple more holes before Kurt Kitayama bowed out. Then it was just Tyrrell Hatton and Matthias Schwab, and Tyrrell Hatton prevailed after a missed short putt from Schwab, who really should have won in regular time. So pretty great stuff. Again, it was a pretty good week for me. I was able to take down the $275 on DraftKings, but there wasn't that many people in it. I was in first before Hatton birdied the 18th hole to get into the playoff, and then when he won, it dropped me from first to third. So in the $8, not that many lineups out there this week, or not that many contests out there last week. So wasn't an opportunity to get myself into too much trouble, but still turned a pretty good, healthy profit. So Schwab should have won was bullet point 2, and bullet point 3 is going to be something that I've been thinking about for a while, and now we haven't reviewed the WGC HSBC, so I think we'll do that really quick if you weren't able to watch that. Rory McIlroy outlasted Xander Schauffele in a playoff. Fantastic golf from both of them. And that really leads me into one of my next question. Is golf in its golden era? Is this the best golf we will see for some time? The reason I ask that is because when Tiger Woods was coming up in the early part of the 2000s and later part of the 1990s, obviously he got a ton of people into the game, including myself. He got a lot of people interested in golf, really took off and boomed. We've seen a decline, though, for quite some time. But all of a sudden now, Tiger Woods has made the game fun again. And how do I know? How can we take a barometer of this? How can we actually get a breath of what Tiger's impact is on the game? Well, I can give you a perfect small example here. 3 or 4 years ago, Tiger Woods, nobody wanted to write about him. Sponsors were dropping him left and right. Now, all of a sudden, I'm watching a television show, This Is Us, that I watch every week with my wife. If you guys watch the show, it's a pretty good show. Not going to lie to you. I enjoy it. I try to watch it weekly. This past week or the week before, the show was basically all about Tiger Woods. We're talking about a sitcom television show, one of the best out there, one of the best rated. Does basically an entire episode about Tiger Woods. Then, Nicki Minaj, excuse me, not Nicki. Cardi B names her track. Tiger Woods, he's back. And the fact that he's back, now he's got rivals. It's not just the Tiger Woods show. Right, Rory McIlroy coming into the absolute pinnacle height of his career. Justin Thomas coming out as obviously a force to be reckoned with. Throw in Dustin Johnson if he could ever get fully healthy. And then major Brooks Koepka, not normal Brooks Koepka, major Brooks Koepka is certainly a force to be reckoned with. So I go back to my third bullet point of this. Is golf in its golden era right now? Are we seeing some of the best? Well, I can tell you that in terms of coverage, this will be the best we'll ever see this year once the PGA Tour now, with that partnership with DraftKings, they're going to develop that technology that gives us every single shot from every golfer. That's what we want to see. And Tiger Woods and those players, they're only going to make it better. So bullet point 3 is golf's golden era. I think we're really close to entering it, and that only means really cool and fun and exciting things for us fans going forward. All right, the last bullet point, which is going to lead me into my next section, because a lot of the golfers playing in the field this week were seen out in Bermuda, which was the alternate field event to the WGC, HSBC. A couple of guys that were playing over in China made their way back and took a week off, obviously, last week with no PGA Tour Tournament, and now are playing here in Mexico. But I'm going to focus on the Bermuda Championship, which I wanted to bring up Brendon Todd's resurgence. If you didn't follow that one all, Brendon Todd, man, he had the swing yips. He could not hit a golf shot, had to take time away from the game, and now he comes back, gets his card back through the Korn Ferry Tour finals after making just enough FedEx Cup points. He wins it after, I think he was like something like 9 or 10 under through 11 or 12 holes. Just an insane run on Sunday for Brendon Todd, and gets it done. I'm sure one of my co-host here on the Osmo Golf team, Timothy Frank, was souped about that one. I'm sure he was very, very excited. Wicked excited, as us Rhode Islanders would say. Okay, so that's going to lead me into my statistical review from the Bermuda Championship. Like I said, a lot of the guys playing in this week's field, I think I counted about 40, so just about a third were playing there in Bermuda a couple of weeks ago. Let's get you, I think I can get you an exact count here. Yeah, it shouldn't be too hard. Let's see here. Alrighty. Yeah, we've got... There we go. 43. So not bad. Just about over a third of the field played in Bermuda. So let's learn top greens in regulation. Russell Knox, very interesting name there. Fabian Gomez and Tyler Duncan were all over 80%. Aaron Wise, there's an interesting name. Henrik Norlander, Vaughn Taylor, I'm guessing. Brendon Todd, David Hearn, and Chris Baker. It could be Nick Taylor too, I'm sorry. All over 75%. And then Scotty Scheffler, Bo Hag, Mark Hubbard, Brian Gay, Ryan Armour, Hank Lebioda, Sean Stefani, and Ryan Gibson were all at 70%. Pretty good there. As we move to top driving accuracy, and obviously the fairways must have been a little harder to hit there in Bermuda, as only 3 guys were over 70% of that are playing in this week's field, that is. Henrik Norlander, Tyler Duncan yet again, and David Hearn yet again. Next, 2/3 of their fairways went to Brendon Todd, Brian Stewart, and again Taylor. And then on to a little lesser percent, somewhere above 64%, Hank Lebioda, Aaron Wise, again, Lanto Griffin, Brian Gay, Ryan Armour. So Brian Gay, Ryan Armour, Aaron Wise, 3 names that hit, looks like over 70% of their greens, and over 65% of their fairways. And then lastly, 4 names. This rounds out the people above 62% of their fairways last week. Russell Knox, Christopher Ventura, Chase Seifert, and John Senden. All right, last but not least, from last week's or 2 weeks ago's Bermuda Championship is the top birdie review. These golfers all got over 24 birdies. Bo Hostler, 27 birdies, but you look at his greens and regulation percentage, and it was terrible. So he must have had a couple of chip-ins. He must have putted incredibly. A lot going on there, but Bo Hostler got it done. Brendon Todd, Ryan Armour, Brian Gay, Scotty Scheffler up there yet again. Bo Hag. Sorry, I'll get that one right eventually. And Hank Lebioda again. Aaron Wise gets a call-out, 22 birdies. So that covers the statistical review from last week. Normally I'd go over my DraftKings points review. I'll go over it really high level quickly. I'm using the WGC now. This is just to spot trends in golfers going forward. This is not necessarily maybe for this week in the OHL Mayakoba Classic. All of the golfers that I just mentioned prior to this, though, in the statistical review, all are playing in this week's field. This is the only time I'm going to focus on guys that are not playing in this week's field, just again for just clarity purpose and to clear up last 2 weeks ago. So this is the DraftKings points review from the WGC HSBC. Roy Ishikawa was the biggest point mover. He came in 67th in the tournament, finished in 48th in DK points. Cam Smith finished in 60th in the tournament, 43rd in DK points. Justin Rose and Paul Casey both better their DK points rank by 11 than their overall rank or finishing position in the tournament. And Corey Connors rounds out the top 5 in 9 positions better, 20th in the tournament, 11th in DK scoring. Okay, so now we are going to head into this week where, I already mentioned at the top, we are heading to Mexico. We've got 2 weeks left really in this fall swing. This week it is the Mayakoba Golf Classic at El Camaleon Golf Course. A really fun, beautiful, beautiful golf course. It is in Playa del Carmen, Mexico. Now I'll tell you guys a little story about Playa del Carmen. If you guys have never gone, it is just a ferry ride away from Cozumel, Mexico, where a lot of those cruises, the Caribbean cruises go into. Well, I decided to go in there, and this is just a word to the wise here. Went into my cruise in Cozumel, and decided to take a ferry ride over to Playa del Carmen so that I could go to Tulum and go to the beautiful Mayan ruins there. And let me tell you, that half hour, 45 minutes was the longest 45 minutes I will ever go on sea, and I don't get seasick. I'm not a guy that is afraid of boats in any stretch of the imagination, but let me tell you, this was the worst ferry ride. There were probably over 500 people on it, and I would say like 350 of them ended up throwing up and getting sick. It was unbelievable. I can't believe they ended up sailing, but they did, and it was a terrible experience. So if you go on a cruise to Cozumel, stay on that little island of Cozumel. I would not recommend doing a ferry ride over to Playa del Carmen. It's a brutal one. Anyways, moving on to the golf course El Camaleon. It is basically right when you pull up into Playa del Carmen. It's maybe 2 or 3 miles away from the port where you'd pull up to. Beautiful golf course. Designed by Greg Norman. It's seaside, but it really winds through the tropical nature jungle of Mexico, of that area. It's surrounded by a bunch of mangroves, and it winds through this beautiful resort with a lot of waterways. You get to your room a lot of the times by boats, and a lot of that will come into play for some of these golfers that are not accurate off the tee or anything else. The first fairway, just one of the cool features about it, the first fairway features a cave, which is actually, there is a bunker at the bottom of it. It's played as a bunker. Fantastic. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. Go check a picture out. It's really cool. It just adds a little uniqueness to the course, which the easiest hole is the 13th on the course. It is 39th out of 49th easiest, so one of the top 10 easiest, at least last year it was. Normally it is that way. It's a par 71 and it measures just 7,000 yards, so it plays relatively easy. The par 5s, 550 yards on 2 of them and 530 yards on the other one, so very, very reachable. And the par 3s, all small. Only one of them reaching 200 yards. The other 3, 116, 150, 150. So just not a ton of length anywhere at all on this golf course. And that's why you saw somebody like Matt Kuchar be able to win it last year. The defending champion of the event is back. We'll talk about him in a little bit on the salary section. Obviously, he's going to be one of the top salaries. But you saw Matt Kuchar last year hit over 80% of his greens and fairways. And now let's talk about El Camaleon and the Mayakoba Golf Classic. Because it's out of the continental U.S., we will not be getting Shot Tracker for it. I know, just another week. Luckily, it will be back next week. So for a 1 week stint before we get it for the Tournament of Champions. I believe we get it for the Tournament of Champions. Almost positive there. So we're going to have to rely on a little bit of old stats, and Matt Kuchar certainly showed us that hitting greens and hitting fairways is still super important, as he was able to win it last year. Okay, so what makes up this field? As we've seen some weird fields in the past couple of weeks, this is not so much a real weird field. I believe there's going to be around 128 players just due to daylight. They just don't have enough daylight to put in 144 players. So I'll go quickly in case anybody is interested to know how it works. For how to qualify for a PGA tournament. So first, the field, winner of a PGA and US Open championship, winner of the Players, winner of the Open Championship, winner of a WGC event, winner of the Arnold Palmer Invitational 3 years, winner of a PGA tournament the last 2 years, career money exemptions, sponsor exemptions, the top 125 on last year's FedEx Cup point list, top 10 in the previous event, and finally, last but not least, the top 50 from the Korn Ferry Tour that graduated last year. So that obviously rounds out the field of 128. Obviously, you could keep going down the list. If there's no golfer that fits that category, you keep going down and so on and so forth. Going into the field, so what does that make up this week? Well, Rickie Fowler was going to be the headline, but he is sick. He looks like he came in down with some intestinal bacterial something or other from his honeymoon, and he wasn't the only one. You got to bring Cipro. You got to bring Cipro. I don't know if that's a pharmacy term or not, but that's what my wife calls it. I made the same mistake on my honeymoon, Rickie. So I feel you. Hopefully it's not too serious. Just in case he has to be the President's Cup selection for Brooks Koepka if Koepka cannot go. But sad to see. I was excited to get to see Rickie. It's been a little while. So certainly when you lose the headliner, it's never any fun, especially for the tournament director. Anyways, 11 of the top 60 of the world are here, but it does leave a little bit of a hole up top in what DraftKings is going to do. So I think this might be one of my toughest pricing guesses, but I'm going to go for it anyway. Sorry there, just taking a little sip. So, okay, we're going to go into the last section before I give you the stats that I'm going to be having Matt Jones and I take a look at for tomorrow. And it is the pricing where I give you my top 5 or 6 on the board and I guess their prices. I've been okay at it, not bad. So let's see if I can nail them all this week. So Tony Finau right up at the top at 11.4K. I think that's pretty obvious now with Rickie gone. He's going to lead the field. He's going to lead the odds boards. Matt Kuchar just hasn't played good enough to warrant it. However, because he's the defending champ and likely will get low odds and it's a weak field, I expect Matt Kuchar to come right in at 11.1K. Followed by Jason Day at 10.8. Who played okay over in Asia, whereas Billy Horschel actually played really well. Got him coming in at 10.4. Think maybe they could switch or flip-flop those two, but I'll be honest, this is where I'm really confused at what they're going to do for this 5th spot, and I don't even know if they're going to put anybody over 10K. If they do, I guess my best guess would be Scotty Scheffler. They'll put right at 10K, then maybe followed by Abraham Answer, who has some pretty good course history coming off of a really good week. It would be a significant price boost from where he was. But maybe they go Answer or Charles Howell, who's been very consistent recently. But I actually think it'll go to Scotty Scheffler right at 10K. He was super highly owned at the Bermuda Championship, where he was like 10.4, 10.5. So would suspect those to be the 5. Again, Finau, Kuchar, Day, Horschel, Scheffler. All right, so we're right at 20 minutes. It's a good number for, especially for a tournament where we're missing one of our favorite sections, the Not Your Average Miscut, which will be certainly back next week. I'm excited. Maybe not back to its fullest form since we do not have Shot Tracker, but we'll at least will be able to maybe say something if they have it on the telecast, or at least just surmise what could have happened from the basic scorecard. So stats for this week that we're taking a look at, I've already given a little bit of a clue when talking about Matt Kuchar. when I go and look at his stats from last year, one of only 3 golfers to hit over 80% of both their greens and fairways. Obviously, that's a great recipe here. If you keep the ball in play, it is attackable. The par 5s are very attackable for almost everybody in the field. So I am going to be looking at driving accuracy this week. I really don't think you need distance so much. I think maybe on the par 5s it'll help you. But if you look at the winners here the past couple of years, Matt Kuchar, Patton Kizzire, I'm really bad with that name. You can tell that those guys, again, even Patton, not so much distance out of his driver. He just putted incredibly well that couple of years ago. So certainly a couple of things to take into consideration, and I'm sure Matt Jones at Matt Jones TFR on Twitter will have some other stats for us tomorrow night. So thanks everybody for coming back for episode 7 of the Opening Tee podcast, and we'll be back tomorrow night for Shot Free from the Tee for the Mayakoba Golf Classic. Thanks everybody. Cheers.